And we're live. And I'm here with my good friend, Sarah Reversi. Sarah, you were at some impressive event. No doubt I'm here in my home office, but I'm great that we could connect live and talk with a great thought leader like David Laborde, who we're going to welcome on stage in just a minute. But this is a really important conversation because I know talking to you after you got back from Davos, there's a real substantive conversation about like the impact that technology like AI can make in a developing nations and developing worlds. And so that's top of mind. And I think that's going to be a big focus for today's conversation.
Absolutely, yes. It's always amazing to be with you, Mike. Today, actually, I'm in Brussels. Now I'm inside of the European Commission, where, of course, all the policies also around agriculture are basically developed. And it's a very important conversation overall nowadays, where technologies and data are basically one of the driving forces behind lots of those decisions. And is exactly thanks to David that I started literally opening my eyes even more, understanding that there's now a big debate about who owns those data, what kind of decision are going to be taken thanks to those data, and who's going to be massively affected by that. We know that AI, that is the main topic of our collab, when we started like almost 2 years ago, was not
Amazing.
so
Yeah.
big, and now basically is transforming our life and also our brains, and this is what scares me the most. But of course, if we're talking about food, we're talking about an essential needs for life and for humanity. And we need to understand that people is not going to be fed by data and bytes, but we still need to produce food.
Yes.
And the majority of
Yes.
people that are in need are in countries where, of course, access and human rights are still one of the big topics to tackle. And I think that talking about that with FAO is fundamental, because there's one unique entity that is playing for each of us, for all the nations, for all the countries. And we need to preserve as much as we can the power of multilateral agencies like FAO, because those agencies are safeguarding the life of humanity. And so this is the reason why I really wanted to have David with us in our collab. And this is the reason why I'm strongly supporting the work of multilateral agencies at the United Nations. So, David,
Great.
I'm so glad, and thank you so much for accepting our invitation, actually.
Thank you, David, for I echo what Sarah said. I'm really excited to have you. And I always like to introduce people. But I think you could probably do a much better job introducing yourself. You're David Laborde, the director of Agrifood Economics Division at FAO. But maybe you could spend a couple minutes just introducing yourself. Sarah, I thank you so much for joining us. I know you're busy in Brussels, so we'll put you in the backstage. And I appreciate your time as well.
Of course, I will follow, because I'm always learning something when I'm hearing David talking. So I'm going to follow and take notes of the conversation. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
David, as I said, if we could just spend a minute so people can understand your impressive background, and then we'll just jump into a conversation, that'd be great. So tell us a little bit about your background, what you do for FAO.
So I am leading a division that do a lot of the analysis around policies and the future of agri-food system, and also the present. I am an economist, so it means that I try to put a lot of numbers on different ideas, because I think an idea with a number is stronger than just an idea. And that's how you can convince people, but also assess the situation based on evidence. I think we are in a domain, and nowadays in a situation where actually people can say a lot of things, can also try to push the agri-food system in some direction. But what is more important is how we have evidence on it, because every policy change impacts the life of people, and there is responsibility behind it.
And your particular purview, what your role is at FAO as the director of Agrifood Economics Division, what does that mean on a day-to-day basis? What are you doing within the broader context of the UN?
So on a day-to-day, my division has the pleasure to lead two of the flagship publications of the organization. So one is the state of food security and nutrition. So that's where people go to know how many people are food insecure in the world, how the situation have changed in some countries, but also why, unfortunately, today we have more people in chronic hunger than 10 years ago. So the impact of conflict, climate, economic crisis. So, following this situation with our colleagues from the Statistics Division, but also we work on how we can make our agri-food system more resilient. What is the impact of land degradation on the productivity and the food security of people? And as I was saying a bit, what are the policies impacting our agri-food system? The subsidies, the taxation, the way we support farmers, the way we support consumers. Because agri-food system is where a lot of the private sector's actors are delivering, from farmers to companies, but public action and public incentive are still shaping them.
That's great. So let's jump in and start talking a little bit about how you see AI impacting what you look at every day as part of FAO. I mean, so much of what we talked about here at the Food AI Collab over the past couple of years is about how AI is transforming food systems. But I oftentimes wonder if we're asking the wrong question, particularly when we look at like something like your work. Should we be instead of looking at how AI fits into things like climate, conflict, economics, and how it's transforming these kind of largely very complex systems instead of just looking solely at food systems? Does that make sense?
Yes. So I think when we talk about AI and agri-food system, we are talking about a lot of different channels and a lot of different technologies. So first, with AI, we can process and collect actually many more data than before. If we want to start to see where crops are grown today and we use satellite data, for instance, it's a lot of pixels. And the way we process them is with AI. So with AI, we can just get more information. We can start to see also what is happening on the evolution of yield and production when we have a climatic event or flood. So AI can help us to get more data. And that's already a value addition. Then we can use this data to look at what's going to happen tomorrow. And sometimes when we think about weather, when we think about yield, when we think actually about who is going to be the next country exporting tomorrow if one of the big exporters is disconnected from market due to a blockade, this is a very complex relation. And here AI helps us to estimate this type of relation. So that we can use AI also to better understand and start to project what is going to happen tomorrow to get better decision. Or I was talking about policy change. We have 190 countries in the world. Policymakers are decision every day. It's a lot of information. So if you combine AI with web scraping, you can start to have an idea of who is doing what. And not by having an army of people collecting all of this information, but everybody starting to see reports saying, okay, this new decree has been released in this country.
Right.
And so on. So understanding what people are doing. And then I can go on and on, but you see, it changed how we look at this, how we process this information, how we do our job as analysts. Mm-hmm. But of course, for other people, it means different things. It means providing the right advice to the farmers. Because I was saying, we want to know how weather is going to impact yield. And for us, it's important because we can say to people, be careful, you are going to have a shock. But the farmers want to know, okay, I have a shock, but what I should plant. And AI can also help providing this type of customized advice.
So I do want to have a bit of a reality check with, kind of readiness in different parts of the world versus oftentimes when we're talking about AI in the US, it's oftentimes a tech hub. I live in Seattle where a lot of this technology is developed. But when you look at who your constituencies are, oftentimes I think of smallhold farmers and company and folks who are in less developed regions. So in terms of basic infrastructure and allowing equitable access to these disruptive, transformative technologies, when you don't have the connectivity or the data systems or whatever, it's still limited. Are we going to look at a world of have and have nots in the future when it comes to AI and how it impacts people?
So I think it's a risk, and a risk for two reasons. First, in order to get a good good answer from any AI system, you need a lot of data.
Yep.
And so for some part of the world, data is very scarce. The information we have in the US in terms of production, in terms of what is ground, is incredible. Okay, there is very few countries in the world that have the same information, even about the farmers, than in the US. So it means that, unfortunately, for many countries today, 1/3 of the country that are members of FAO that cannot really produce their own statistic about just how much they produce. So if you say how much corn or wheat is produced in what third of the country, they don't know. Maybe with AI, we can try to get helping them producing that. But it really means that how much we can train an AI on this country reality is difficult. So this is the inputs kind of story and why they can be lagging behind, because we don't have the data. We are not going to train them, or worst, we may train model on data from the north and then apply it to them. And we know how this can be tricky, okay? Now, there is a question of access. So even if we have this model in this information, yes, it's a bit costly to access some of these requests. So I think we are trying to make it more democratic, especially to make sure that every farmer can get to this type of information. I say it's tricky because, first, the penetration rate of cell phone has been incredible, okay?
Right.
So you will see even in poor part of Africa, people have cell phone.
Yep.
Now, a cell phone and a smartphone is two different things. Huh?
For sure.
And then you have the question of bandwidth and also the question of free access to the internet. That are barriers. So we should not be over-optimistic. But sometimes also, even within a household, we can see gender biased. Meaning the man has access to the information, not the woman. So we really need to make sure that we are not too rosy. And we really think about how we deliver this. And the last miles is very important,
You mentioned the biases, and with platforms being controlled oftentimes by a few players, because there's a push globally in region, kind of these underdeveloped regions to start to collect farm level data. Are there risks if that data becomes concentrated, in the hands of a few major players, or how do you kind of, as in your role at the FAO, make sure that if these smallhold farmers are going to give up data, that it's used in ways that are consistent with their rights and fair use, and it's used fairly? Does that make sense?
Yes. So on one hand, FAO doesn't have a regulatory power. Okay. So we can just be this knowledge place where we bring the different actors, trying to show the pro and cons of these options, and that's very important. And we also provide guidelines. We work with government to see how we can do it. Now, the question of concentration is a real issue. Not so much because concentration may not be bad in itself, but what we see that in order to deliver this type of services, we need a lot of data, as I've said. And this data come from farmers in many cases. And so you have farmers that provide data to a few actors. And a few years after, the actors are going to ask them to pay for this data, or at least for the value addition or the information generated from that. And here we have to be careful, because we are talking about more than 600 million farmers or households depending on farming, okay? So it's a lot of small actors. And we don't have market power compared to 3, 4, or 5 big tech. So, and we don't want the rent ending up in the big tech, because these 100 million of farmers are already among the poorest people on earth, often the most food insecure, and at the starting point of the whole system. So balancing their needs, making sure their rights. Also, they cannot come with an army of lawyers, okay, to defend their rights.
Right.
But they are the origin of the data and the origin of the food we eat. So that's why we care about them.
One of the you mentioned how a lot of these less developed nations have cell phones. Just kind of the widespread access to cellular connectivity was, I think, one of the great kind of pushes over the past couple of decades to make sure that like these smallholder farmers had connectivity in the forms of cell phones. There's been talk about AI as a way to kind of a great equalizer, because you could put in the hands of people knowledge sets that they would never have access to, and maybe data that they would never have access to. It's hugely powerful. Have you thought about ways in which you could put this type of technology in the hands of a small to medium-sized farmer in a poorer country to give them potential ways to be much more productive, to help make sure that their foods are more thrive and kind of in ways that they hadn't previously? I mean, I don't want to kind of overemphasize or kind of overstate the benefits of AI, but it could be transformative in significant ways. Are you guys giving thoughts on how to let that power be tapped by these smaller, poorer farmers?
So I will say yes. On one hand, we also try to, and working with farmers on the ground and using all the tools we have also as economists, meaning doing experimental economics with them, trying to see also what information they really need, okay? And how this information can be actually used by them to improve their situation. Because, I mean, you can go with an AI, with an LLM, with ChatGPT, ask a number of questions first. Yep. If you are not expert, you may find information that will not help you.
Right.
I mean, we still have this problem about how this AI sometimes can hallucinate or actually just repeat what exists on the web. That may not be the truth, okay? So sorry, we want to make sure that we deliver the right message to them, and at the same time, the right quality of information. Now, as I've said, many farmers don't have access to a cell phone, not all of them.
Right.
I mean, we also have a lot of rural area that, especially in the poorest country, doesn't have access to electricity, okay?
Right.
So that at one point, you don't charge your phone and you don't have a phone. So that's why we should keep that. This AI is not going to solve everything, okay? It's a tool. It's a tool that, if it is well used, can really help farmers, you know, but at the end, it's technology. So tomorrow, if I say, okay, I give you pesticide, yes, pesticide can protect your crops, you know,
right.
But pesticide can also make you sick. So any technology is not good or bad per se. It's really how we use it, what safety net we have, and how we think about the access and who is controlling it.
How would you characterize the conversations you've had with organizing bodies from some of these emerging nations, and maybe even folks representing farmers and other people within the broader food system with regards to AI? Is there a lot of curiosity? Is there what are they asking of you in terms of making sure that they're well positioned for this future in which AI will potentially change all of our lives in different ways?
So I think there is a lot of excitement about AI.
Okay.
Maybe not at the farmer level, okay?
Yep.
I think because farmers also are very pragmatic and they face with very concrete problem, like, is it going to rain tomorrow? So now if you say with AI, I can really tell you if it's going to rain tomorrow, that's going to help them. Now, when we talk about AI, I think that it's still a bit of a buzzword, okay? So people doesn't fully understand the different technology behind it and say, oh, AI is going to solve this. Sometimes also AI is just reinventing the wheel, okay? We don't need AI to solve all the problems we have, and we will see a number of companies saying, okay, we have an AI solution for that. Or I see even then, you know, just slapping AI on a previous product just to give you the feeling that it's new and better. And it's not the case. So I think, yes, there is excitement. Farmers are much more, you know, pragmatic and realistic. So if they see it helping what they do, both in high-income country and low-income country, they will be more interested. But I just think we need also to be rational about this and to make sure that we assess the costs and benefits to not make things more complicated than needed.
There's obviously a broader conversation about the trade-off between embracing AI and the infrastructure that it requires in the form of more land, more resources, more water, potentially having a big impact on the amount of carbon emitted into the atmosphere. And so I know that one of the overall goals of FAO and just the UN is to kind of make sure that we kind of continue to act in reasonable ways and kind of sustain life and on the long term. Are you thinking about that and how we balance that trade-off? And I mean, do we want, do you have a calculation like in terms of how powerful AI needs to be or how many benefits it needs to be versus the trade-off and the damage it could do to the environment? Is that something that you wrestle with?
No, completely. And you are totally right. What we are interested is really to make sure that we can provide good food for everyone today and tomorrow. So that's why this question of sustainability is so important. And in this context at FAO, we have worked on a global roadmap to achieve food security and nutrition in the context of this climate action to show this trade-off. And yes, AI is part of the solution and of the problem, to not sound very original. But what we see, this competition for water in particular is becoming more and more extreme, especially when you see a good initial idea that to say, oh, we are going to put the data center in some of the territories that are a bit underdeveloped from an economic point of view. So we put a data center in a rural area. And what is doing in a rural area, it's agriculture. And then you have the farmers that are already struggling,
right,
are competing for the same water with a data center that can pay officially or unofficially for this access of water more than them. So here you are making actually the situation more painful for them. And I think at the end, it's to go back to your point, I think essential is AI can contribute to agri-food system, but AI and data center is an economy-wide transformation.
Right.
The amount of water and energy we need for the data center is for the whole economy. It's not just for the part that are helping the farmers. So on this, there is always this asymmetry, and the asymmetry means that the amount of water that the whole economy needs to cool down the data center are going to compete a lot with the farmers, and the farmers will get less benefits out of it than the cost for them. And that's why at the society level, we need to rebalance. We need to understand that we are putting a lot of pressure on our farmers, and they don't have the economic means to compete. And that's where, as a society, we need to compensate them or protect them from this competition.
When you think about putting these types of tools in the hands of farmers, if they can get access, it's always a big question with accessibility in terms of these. One of the things we're seeing, I've been writing a paper on the impact of AI in the food system in the U.S. and it is enabling new marketplaces and kind of us to see further and up and further down the food value chain in terms of conditions and maybe find new marketplaces. And so we talk about small farmers and I think about finding markets for their products, even if they're in a remote village, in Asia or in Africa. If somehow we can use AI to maybe find places or markets for their products, do you think about that, like how it can potentially expand the revenue opportunities for farmers if we can maybe get access to them? Because one of the great powers we're seeing in AI today is allowing us to kind of, like I said, see further up the food value chain. If we could put that in the hands of farmers, I think that could be potentially powerful. Have you given any thought to that?
So here I will be very careful about it. First, it depends if you talk about finding opportunity within your country,
sure,
or across borders. Because when you start to trade food, there is a lot of regulation.
Right.
There is a lot of certification to be done. So actually, maybe AI can accelerate some of these administrative processes, but it's really all the regulatory bodies are going to use AI to facilitate and reduce the cost for farmers to do that, or also to be able to certify or inspect some shipment at a lower scale. But the cross-border trade is particular, and a lot of the problems that are faced today are not going to be solved tomorrow by AI. Within country, that can be a bit different, because it's easier to move the food. It's more about matching demand and supply, finding niche consumers, so that can help. Now, I think that AI is actually also a great way to innovate within the agri-food system. So not just on the farm, but before and after.
Sure.
Or you can build better new recipe, or you can find about new combination that will please the taste of consumers. We use also AI to develop new seeds, new varieties. Instead of having to deal with a physical crop, you can use a digital twin and play with it, and then after implement it. So now, how this innovation are going to benefit the farmers? That's a big question, because that can be the input companies or the processing companies. Now everyone has to make money and pay for these AI services. But I will not oversell the benefit done in terms of income opportunity. I think that a lot of the AI for farmers will be about cost reduction and efficiency.
Got it.
Where the right time when I should switch on my irrigation, where exactly I should bring some treatment on my field. And if I start to combine a drone with AI, I don't have to treat all my field. I can just know exactly when and where to apply some treatment. So I reduce my cost. So you see this type of elements.
I like that you mentioned how AI is being used even further upstream before we talk about the farm, in that I just had a conversation last week with Vonnie Estes, who heads up innovation for the International Fresh Produce Association, and her talks with farmers and just talking in the world of ag, there's a lot of work being done with AI to accelerate innovation in terms of creating more robust seeds and helping us do genomic editing, for example. And so I think, are you thinking of kind of more a broader, more holistic, when you think of AI and the impact on creating more resilient crops in the labs, or helping us power that? Is that a big part of what you're thinking about today, or is that something that you do think about?
Exactly. And that can be help to, developing new seeds, developing new treatments. That is going to help also downstream, making new recipe about how we combine some of the crops or other product into new food products. But also I think AI is going to help guiding the choice of some consumers, depending on your health, on your age, what you should be put in your plate, how you monitor what you put in your plate. AI is going to help this. So AI can really help along the value chain. AI can also be used to reduce food waste or food losses by better logistics. Or I have seen companies developing new sensors, duplicating also the nose receptors, including of animals, that can detect actually through this when the fruits are going to rot. So, a lot of the things that were too complex before, now we can use AI to solve it. And that can really help at all stages of the value chain, before we plant and actually after we consume.
I like that you brought up the consumer, because I do think that AI could be a really powerful way in which consumers could get access to first line of defense or first line advice, whether that's around their health or their diet or the nutrition. And so, because quite honestly, it's hard, even in countries like the US, maybe particularly in the US, getting access to healthcare in an affordable way is a real challenge. And particularly like getting access to like a nutritionist to give you guidance on what you should be eating. How do you see AI impacting the lives of consumers in some of the countries, many of these countries? Do you see like your AI nutritionist or AI digital twin as a consumer helping you kind of guide what you're eating on a daily basis? Are you thinking about that, and do you have hope for those types of developments in the future?
Yes, no, that clearly, and we start to see also apps, using a picture of your plate and starting to store it. And if you couple it with information you have from your whatever system you use to monitor your health, that can help. Now, don't forget that we also have billions of people that doesn't have access to this technology today, and will not have access tomorrow. And even for the people that have access to this technology, we need basic education. I mean, we need people that use AI with some critical thinking. Because AI make mistakes. AI is going to be also, as we said, controlled by a number of actors, and we can see bias in the information. So it's not going to replace the human factor in all of this. the cultural aspect, but it can be a very strong catalyst and accelerator if we design it properly, if we have the right governance, and if we put it in the hands of people that will understand where to use it and where to not use it.
Stepping outside of the AI conversation, I think obviously just 2026, we're in a world where there's a lot of uncertainty. There's wars going on in the Middle East. I would imagine that kind of all of this turbulence and uncertainty is fairly disruptive, potentially disruptive to a number of downstream actors in on farms or et cetera. So what are the conversations you're hearing? What are kind of the key things you're thinking about when you're doing your work today with regards to all this kind of geopolitical uncertainty? Is this one thing that's top of mind, or are you guys having lots of conversations about that?
So yes, and at FAO, we follow the development of the situation in the Middle East. We release analyses. And I would say, so you don't need AI to know that if you engage in a conflict in the Middle East, energy markets are going to be impacted and fertilizer will be impacted, okay? So that's what I say, you don't need AI for everything.
Yeah,
now,
you don't.
In order to process some of the large flow of information, to be able to do analysis overnight, of course, I mean, AI is a great accelerator. It can help making synthesis of a number of evidence available online. It can help analyzing the feeling of the traders. It can help processing information for maritime transportation. So, the fundamentals may not be replaced by the AI, but the way we deal with our speed of reaction to this crisis is facilitated by AI.
When you think about emerging economies and some of the AI solutions out there today, are there what advice or what opportunities do you see for potentially innovators who are working with AI to potentially address in mutually beneficial ways some of the challenges we're finding in the developing world? Because I think there's oftentimes people like to frame things as problems, but you can also look at the flip side of the coin. Problems always present opportunities. For those building AI tools today, are there things that you wish you could tell them to build that would help needs and meet needs within some of these developing countries that may also be good opportunities for them? Does that make sense?
Yes, no. So I think that the main element is to really see what can be transferred to data scarce environment. I think that's going to be very important. So do not always develop a model that can be, trained in the US or in Europe and think that now I have it, mission accomplished. Because you will need to, in many cases, train it in another environment if you want to be relevant. Crops, people, markets doesn't react in the same way everywhere. Right. And so we should not generalize things. And, at FAO, we do also a lot of ground truthing. So we are checking, what come from global estimates coming from global models. And then we check on the ground. And then we see that, yes, there's big differences. And we want to impact people on the ground with the right information. So I would say, make sure that you develop solutions that can be deployed in the data scarce environment if you want to be useful for that. And that's a particular, I think, exercise. And also, you will see that some problems in low and middle income countries can be pretty specific, related to, sometimes corruption, sometimes informal sectors, and where the use of AI is not going to solve on the spot this problem. So, technology is part of the solution, right, but technology is not everything.
Stepping back from the farm, I do think AI-powered physical manifestation of AI on the farm in the terms of automation or whatever could have a big impact globally, certainly in developing in emerging or more mature economies. But I do want to, there's a lot of conversation happening around AI and the potential disruptive impact it can have on a lot of different lines of work. I would imagine you at FAO and more broadly in the UN have given some thought to that. How do you think about AI's impact on people who work in the food service industry or in kind of other lines of work. Is that something you think about or you're worried about, or do you think that's more like a kind of a mature economy type of concern?
So for sure, AI will have impact along the value chain in the agri-food system too. Now, AI may not, the biggest impact of AI, especially in employment, may not be seen in the agri-food system in the sense that first, there's still a lot of labor used for that. So, mechanization has not replaced all the type of workers, including, in a kitchen. So, and I think that the cook is actually well protected compared to other type of workers.
Sure.
Getting a robot with an AI replacing a cook to make an omelette is a bit more advanced than to use actually an AI even to optimize an Excel worksheet today. So I think this sector is a bit more protected, but obviously it's going to change a lot in the consumer-facing, industry. It can create also new opportunities. We talked before about connecting farmers to consumers, but I think a lot of how you order food online, how your fridge is going to tell you what to buy and when, and maybe to do it autonomously, it's going to create new things and maybe not replacing humans, but really doing things that no one was doing before. Yes, we will still need farmers. Farmers may become more efficient with AI, but I think we are still far from seeing a farm fully run by AI,
right?
Because there's a lot of decisions to take, decisions that need a human factor to be accountable for the decision you make, for the risk you take. And at the end, I think also the food supply is a strategic aspect of it, okay? In the sense that you don't want your food supply to collapse because the AI went crazy.
Right.
The AI decided to harvest your field 5 days before, or you have a cyber attack that basically put your AI on knees and you don't have no food. So, I think that, on very important sector of the economy, health, AI is helping, but you still want to get a doctor taking some decision.
You want
a farmer to take decision, a cook
right.
to take some decision.
That's an important point, keeping humans in the loop, because you do not, like you said, you have a great illustration. You do not want your crop harvested 5 days early because the AI got the calendar wrong. And so keeping humans in the loop is going to be critical. Do you think that's possible 10 years from now, 15 years from now, as a new generation of farmers come up and just people get more comfortable with AI? Do you worry about an over-reliance on kind of just decision-making? Or do you think that we'll be smart enough as a human race to kind of make sure that the final decisions on those critical matters are made by humans kept in the loop?
So I think farmers will still be in the loop and take decisions because, being a farmer is a tough job and you pay the consequence of your choice.
Yeah.
If you plant at the wrong dates, you will have consequences. If you harvest at the wrong date, you will have consequences. In other sector of the economy, you delegate things to AI because the consequences may not be as straightforward for you or your business. And I think it plays a role. Where you are ready to delegate some of the decision is where they may not be critical. Of course, the finance industry is a bit different, but we know how it can fail at scale. Hopefully, the agri-food system has never failed as some banks have so far. So I trust farmers more than bankers.
We have just about 5 minutes left. So real quickly, just a personal question. What AI tools do you personally use? Have you done vibe coding? Are you personally trying to be more productive, or just kind of from a personal curiosity standpoint? Have you dived into using any of these yourself for your own job?
So yes, I am using different model, Gemini, Copilot, Grok to test a number of things. That's very interesting to see how they provide support for analysis. Obviously, I am doing a lot of coding, and I am using AI to code. AI can teach me a few things, but also can go very wrong. So that's why it's important. But I will say sometimes AI can do 80% of the job that I do, but the last 20% are pretty unique. And the last 20% is how you cross the finish line in a proper way. And we also use different type of AI in terms of modeling, in terms of predicting evolution of markets or things like this. And AI is great to browse thousands of emails to find exactly what was said about what, to do translation, live translation, you know. So it's great, okay? But it has to be used with people that knows the situation and have an idea of what the answer should be.
If you were to kind of tell folks how they can learn more about what you do, your work, and possibly ways they could support you, or just if people want to keep on top of the work that you're doing with the FAO, what's the best way to do that? Is there a website or a LinkedIn, or how would you suggest people can?
Well, I mean, FAO has a very nice website, but FAO is a very huge organization, so you may need an AI to find what you are looking for.
Of course.
No, LinkedIn is a good way. We provide a lot of updates at the individual level, at the corporate level. So that's good. Every year also, we have a very global forum, the World Food Forum, where we have a youth forum, a science and innovation forum, an investment forum, where we try to bring all these innovators, all the practitioners around this topic. So really, we try to bring people on board, and of course, directly, indirectly, with people like Sarah, we try to outreach and to learn from everyone.
Well, we love working with Sarah as well. She seems like she's in so many of the important conversations around the world in terms of making sure our food systems are sustainable and healthy and reaching the right people and feeding the right people. And so, David, I do appreciate your time. You're doing important work there at the FAO, and I certainly learned a lot from your insights today. And I thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. This has been great.
Thank you for having me.
Stay on.